No Nation. Wow. What a week, guys. How we doing out there, baby? You know, I had a big rant the other day following the Clemson Florida State game in Death Valley. And we talked a little bit about narratives. Narratives. Oh, well, Florida State, they go on the road and they're in a dogfight against Boston College. Oh, Florida State, they should have destroyed Clemson. How are they in a dogfight with an unranked Clemson team? Oh, my word. Florida State just does not look like a top 5 team. They don't look like a Georgia out here whipping up on high school teams every week. They don't look like Miami out here beating up on Miami of Ohio. No. Florida State, yeah, they don't get the benefit of the doubt. Well, we crashed a lot of that rumors today, and I'm glad to welcome to the show our guy, Big Game James Coleman. He's going to join me to talk about just a crazy afternoon in college football. And, the chickens have come home to roost, if you will, in the college football world. It only took 4 or 5 weeks, but here we are, man. The Noles undefeated. And as we look around the country, while James gets set up, I'm just going to read some scores. Of course, Utah loses last night to really kind of, put another nail in the UF coffin as far as their strength of schedule and what happened. They lost to the, the third string backup. Utah ends up losing. Clemson trounces Syracuse. They come back kind of like I predicted on a mission. They beat Syracuse. UK 33, Florida. I can't even read what I wrote. Does anybody know what Florida got? Like 13 points, something like that. Penn State handles business. They take care of Northwestern. USC, guys, kind of like we talked about. USC, if they were going to have a week, Colorado is going to have a week to where they're going to have a chance to really compete with one of those top 5 teams. It was going to be USC due to their lack of defense and what Colorado has on offense. But like I said, my guy, Big James Coleman, just joined the show. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? How you doing, George?
I think we're having some technical difficulties. I'm not being able to hear James. Bear with us here just a moment. See what we got. What's up, James?
Can you hear
me? Yeah, I got you now.
Okay, cool.
What a day, man. Did you see it playing out like this? Georgia just barely surviving against the Auburn team that has just been whatever you want to call it, man. What a day.
Yeah, I mean, this is what college football is about. This is why you have parity. This is why, people say they hate the transfer portal, but this is what makes it great. And as a guy who covers the NFL for a living, I get a chance to see a lot of this stuff, what parity looks like on a weekly basis. And I think it's just good for the sport. And this is why I always tell people, just calm the fuck down. Like nothing is like the goal is to win and play for a championship. Nobody is going to just blow somebody out every week, and especially when you're in conference play. The thing about conference play is that you get a chance to play the same guys over and over, year in and year out, and the styles of different conferences typically match up. So, that's why you see Auburn play Georgia very well. They are used to Georgia. They know what Bowers can do. They don't necessarily fear him. They feel like they have a chance, and I think guys are just like, I enjoy it. That's what I'm doing. Again, I knew Syracuse wasn't going to be a blowout for Clemson because Syracuse gives Clemson troubles. It's just Dino Babers has done that. It doesn't mean Syracuse is a bad team. It doesn't mean Clemson isn't a better than a 2-2 team. I just think a lot of times people are just so used to one thing that it has to look like this.
No doubt, man. And that's the thing about us going to Boston College for that Red Banner game. And I think that's the difference. That's the difference between the SEC and the ACC. Exactly what you said. People will buy into that for the SEC. They'll buy into it all day long. Oh, man, it's a conference grind. They've played each other every year for 132 years. But they won't give that credit to Florida State for going to Boston College, an emotionally charged red bandana game that just means the world for them. And another thing I kept pointing out, like Florida State played 3 Power 5 teams and 1 G5 team. So when you're arguing with a Florida, person about total defense, and that's the main thing I wanted to start the show with. One of the big themes has been total defense and the misnomer that it is throughout all, in today's college football. But, our second and third best wins that everybody's talking mess on are Clemson and Boston College. Meanwhile, those wins for Florida were McNeese State and Charlotte, who they were like, in a battle with. Yet you have people coming at me, and you see the talking heads, people like Mark Ryan pointing out, oh, y'all are 108 and 101 in total defense, quote unquote, and Florida's top 5. Well, we learned about Florida's top 5 total defense today against a Kentucky team who hasn't been exactly lighting the world on fire up until today.
And I think that's why it's funny. You see people always come up and say things like last year. So my defense of Fuller is people, oh, well, you have to watch the games. You have to watch the games. Fuller, if you think Florida State's defense was a top 15 defense, then you just don't know football. So that's what people would say last year. But then those same people would come out and say, well, Florida State's got the 100th ranked defense. So using the same damn metric that you said last year, you couldn't use. Now you're using it, and you're saying other people are better because of this and not taking into account who you've played. Now, granted, I think we've since seen Boston College lose to Louisville, and but they scored points toward the end, but they lost to Louisville. They just beat Virginia in a shootout, close game.
Tennessee's best win.
Game. You said what?
Tennessee's best win on the year is Virginia.
That part. So when we go back and we just look and we analyze these things, it's a lot of I just can't from when it's within our fan base, it's a lot of people who are just trying to. I can't believe that we're this good, and I'm trying to lessen the blow for when the disappointment happens. And I'm like, that's just not a way to live life. That's not a winner's way. That's not a winner's mentality. We could lose. Actually, me and Kaylin DeLoach had a great interview on my channel, Dead Media Group. Make sure y'all go check it out, where we just go through the season as it is. And he talks about playing against Castellano and how he knew he was a pretty fast guy. Nobody else really knew how much of a runner is, and now everybody has tape on that so they can game plan against it. But even then, it was the guys not being in position. They believe. The only people who don't believe right now are basically the outside noise, which is why I like this team so much more. And it's the true metric of championship teams. After the Clemson game, everybody goes on the field, win or lose. I like that tradition that Clemson does. Obviously, a lot of Florida State fans were on there because they were there. And I saw one of the coaches that I knew that was there when I was there. And I talked to him. I said, hey, man, I'm glad you guys were doing good, man. I said, they were kind of chopping the defense up. And he looked at me and said, none of that stuff matters, James. Just outside noise. We're just happy that we won this game. And I just said, and I told him, I said, hey, man, that's why I know it's different. Whereas we're out here critiquing the little things instead of being grateful for where we're at. Because again, Georgia's going to talk about not Mike Elko, excuse me. What's the OC's name? I can't even think of his name. They're going to talk about how they're going to talk about how the OC isn't being as dynamic as they were in the past. That's what some fans are going to do. But most of the guys who are here, they're going to talk about how they still have the nation's longest winning streak. Whereas Florida State fans should talk about how we have one of the nation's longest winning streaks. It just be Bobo. That's it, Bobo. Where we should just be grateful. And I think it comes from, and I'm not saying that people who say this are cowards. I'm not calling you a coward per se. I'm saying it's cowardice because you just can't be happy. Be happy with 4-0 because if 4-0 was easy to do, guess what? Everybody would be 4-0.
Absolutely.
And yes, I think Mike Barnes asked the question that was important. We are at 3,005. We are now 995 subscribers short of our next goal.
Absolutely. Y'all make sure y'all get over to Den Media Group. give James Coleman a follow. He does big time giveaways. I think he just gave away $300 when they hit 3,000 subscribers. Monday, yes,
Monday
sir.
show we're giving away $300.
This coming up Monday, make sure you guys are, if you're subscribed or not already subscribed, make sure you get subscribed, become a member, be in there, eligible to win that $300. Can't say enough good things about James, and he'll be at 4,000 before you know it. Also, give me a follow. I'm just at the Renegade Report. Super simple. We're trying to get to that partnership level. We're almost at that very first one. We're about 75 away from that first monetization level. So y'all get over there and follow me at the Renegade Report. And man, just a fun time. Like James said, it's all about winning the games. Here we are, 4-0. Everybody in the nation kind of making excuses. And one thing that happened last week, Ohio State goes out and plays a Notre Dame team, and they have a great game in prime time. I believe the final score is 17-14, and Ohio State, for beating this Notre Dame team, passes a Florida State who goes into Death Valley and beats a Clemson team, just based on looks and nothing really. There's no really reason why they should have passed us. So my question is, now we should pass Georgia, right? Or at least Georgia should drop a few spots. How does this work? Because an unranked Auburn team who is just God knows what in offensive, defensive rankings and all this stuff, Georgia squeaks out a win in a game that looked extremely close to the Clemson Florida State game, except for Georgia was able to get it done right there in the fourth quarter versus overtime. So how does that play out? Do we get the same benefit of the doubt? Do you see Georgia falling to a number 2 or a number 3?
We won't. There's a great quote. I'm gonna say it's from me. I don't remember where I got it from, but jealousy is earned, and hate isn't necessarily earned, but it's one of those things where you have to persevere and push through. So the reality of the situation is this: we win and you're in. Treat each week like it's a playoff, which we should. So we go up next week. We do what we're supposed to do against Virginia Tech. We'll be fine. We're still going to be in a situation to where we can play in that. But based upon what people are saying, the criteria is Syracuse is going to come in more than likely 4-2 when we play them. I think I forgot who they have up, but they got another team that's pretty good. They just lost to Clemson. But they'll be either a lower ranked team or a team that's on the verge of being ranked when we beat them. So that's one team. So we got to take care of that. Duke is more than likely going to come in with one loss. So you take care of your business, and you take care of business in the month of October. You have no problem going into the month of November, where you still have an opportunity to play 2 meaningful games that should be 2 rivalry games. But those 2 wins should propel you to be able to get into college football playoff, regardless of one loss, because you'll be in the ACC championship more than likely, and you should be able to win it. Florida State is everywhere that they need to be at. What we got to do is stop being so we're easy bait. I know the little Fruity Pebble guy that takes his words. I forgot his name. I know he works for Fox, and I think is it Platt or Klatt?
Joel Klatt, yeah.
And he also
him and
works
RJ
for
Young.
Fox. Yeah, and RJ Young is the Fruity Pebble guy. What we're doing is we're giving them content. So it's kind of like my dog Big No. My dog Big No knows every time he says something about Florida, Miami, good or bad, trolling or not trolling, is going to cause a reaction that's going to get him 15 to 20,000 impressions. So what guys are doing is this is their job. It's with content. They got to say something. Once they say something, they know we're like hitting a hornet's nest. We're going to come. We're going to attack. Ignore the noise. Enjoy being 4-0. Don't go to notable podcasters' sites or tweets. Don't even troll them based upon how you feel like their teams are doing. Just speak on your own. Speak with our own and support our own. Just like we want to support our team, we need to go out. We need to support our own people. Support my guy George with Renegade Report. Support CJ with Dope Talk. Support Chris with Sporadics. Support me with Den Media Group if you would like to, and some of the things that we're doing. Because at the end of the day, it's about us. We move the needle. You must understand that. If we did not move the needle, then nobody would be talking about us. If we were so bad, nobody would be talking about us. If we were so bad, Guys like the Are You Serious guy when we did our channel with our what do you call it, Spaces, wouldn't get so upset, so passionate. Like when I'm playing the duck and the duck thinks he's going to win, I'm just going to make duck sauce at the end of it. So it doesn't really bother me. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't want you feeling like you don't have a chance. It's no fun. Again, I came into a dynasty. I was birthed into a dynasty with Coach Bowden. It was fun. It was fun knowing that most of the teams beat themselves before you even got a chance to play the game against them. That was a dope experience and a dope feeling. I want us to get back to that as a fan base. When people say, oh, we're going to beat y'all, y'all suck. Okay. Just leave it at that. And then go about your day. It's kind of like this GIF or a video that goes around when these two reporters are at a soccer game and they put the thing up to the lady and she says something crazy and they look at each other and then they just turn their back and walk away. That's kind of what we got to do, even though I know it's tempting to have to be able to say something. But the reality of the situation is they can't talk about their sorry-ass team. Even my guy, I think his name is Neum. I think he came on and he was pretty respectful for a while on Seymour Stack Space, and then somebody else came in, and then you go back and you look at their stuff with Clemson. I'm like, hey man, okay, see y'all don't want to talk anymore. Y'all want to troll, and the reality is you troll. And you did all that trolling, you did all that yapping, and you got an alligator mouth with a hummingbird ass. Your ass writing checks, your mouth writing checks that your ass can't catch, and that's the problem. That's what we got to realize, guys. That's just some free game by big game.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. It's and what gets me is no matter what happens on the field, it's like they've got to spin. It's well, preseason rankings don't matter, but we don't get any credit last year for beating LSU because they weren't ranked preseason. They end up being a top 10 team at the end of the year, but that doesn't matter. This year, they're top 5 at the beginning of the year. It's, preseason rankings don't matter. Well, Clemson was number 9 preseason, but that doesn't matter since. And it goes on and on. Like you said, you just can't give time to it. At a certain point, you gotta ignore it and quit giving them attention. When it comes to those Fox guys, another aspect of it is these guys are West Coast, Pac-12, soon to be Pac, Big Ten or whatever guys. They have zero reason to support Florida State, zero reason to build them up, because at the end of the day, it's going to be Florida State battling out for USC, Oregon for that playoff spot. So when it comes for their poll, if they have a vote in the AP or whether they're going to push a narrative on their show, of course they're going to be pushing for the Big Ten and the West Coast schools. So RJ Young, Joel Klatt, I don't pay them the mind today except for just a slam dunk on them. Shout out to Crane and Company. Those guys have been calling it how they see it the whole year, and they've been pretty fair to the Noles, and I'm super happy with how they had it. Couple more things. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I want to talk about the SEC kind of who is the best team in that thing, but we got a big matchup game starting right now. Duke, Notre Dame. Man, headed into this season, it looked like it was going to be LSU, Clemson, and then after that, maybe a Pitt. We knew Duke had Riley Leonard. We knew they were going to be maybe that 4th or 5th team. Nobody was really worried about Miami. But more and more with Louisville, they keep winning over there, and they don't really see anybody. There's a very, very high chance there's 0 losses or 1 ACC loss by the end of the year. And you've got undefeated Duke, who sure they play Notre Dame, but even if they lose this game, they'll still be undefeated in the SEC. You're in a situation where, I mean, everything's in front of us. We went out, we're fine, but this ACC race is pretty damn tight. And whether it's Duke or Louisville, I'd prefer not to have to play Duke again, but all of a sudden, this game, here in 2 or 3 weeks against Duke is huge. If you lose that one, you put yourself in a pretty precarious situation as Noles. And if you'd have told me that going into season, I'd be 4-0 and staring down a big time matchup with Duke to kind of decide the conference. I'd have told you were crazy, but here we are.
Well, I think a lot of times we look at things and we listen to them like, yo, this is Duke. And I look at this as a situation where if you really paid attention to last season and you looked at Elko, you would know that Duke was a pretty good team. And Duke does this the same thing with Wake Forest. Every few years, they do something, and they have a very senior laden team. They have some good players, and they do what they're supposed to do. They just don't have the depth, and it's hard for them to have the depth because they are a school that is, a true academic school. Duke is a really, really good academic school that's hard to get the players in. And I said I didn't think that Duke would beat Clemson. But I did say we'll know a lot about how the season is going to go, and I'll know a lot more about Duke based upon how well Duke plays Clemson week 1. And I never thought I would see Duke beat them. But Duke is a very scrappy team, really good defense, very scrappy defense. They're in places where they're supposed to be at, and I like them. I like what they're doing. So, but yeah, I think that's the gist of it. Can you go to XRP Trial 33 because I want to address that real quick.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna file that into don't give them any attention, but
no, I just want people because some people don't realize that. They're like, you might be an old person or a person that has older things. And I know back in the day, you try to pay attention. Like what I do is Kai Coleman. Kai Coleman. I'm on the phone right now. So my bad. I know I don't know if he has kids or not either, but he probably thinks that's rude as well. I'm a father. I'm a father, and I own multiple businesses. So,
we love Kai and Trey around here, so it's never a problem.
So what I do is I also like to be able to scroll for stats. So right now, what I'm doing, the easiest way, there's this app, right? There's this app called ESPN app. It's on your phone, and when you click on the phone, so when I'm spitting out stats, I'm typically looking at my phone. So like when George says something, I want to make sure I say something intelligent. I know you probably can't multitask, and most people can't. But as a former player, as a guy who on a passing situation had to diagnose if somebody was coming from the inside to outside to be able to go run a route, gauge speeds, and be able to go block those individuals in a manner, I'm pretty good at fucking multitasking. So like, don't judge me based upon what you can or can't do. That's why I'm in the seat. So
and also, so the folks know, I'm in a pretty limited situation trying to produce this thing. I'm pretty new at it. James has been a huge help for me. So I don't really have the ability to look up stats. So having James be able to score watch and stuff is big for this show and one of the things we talked about. So yeah, take that shit
right
down the
now,
road.
I didn't even know. I was about I'm looking at the also in the chat. Somebody brought up, did you know LSU's made it a game? Last time right before I hopped on, LSU was looking rough. So I needed to go check to make sure that that's dope. That's a big thing. So again, when we're here, I'm over here trying to figure out different matchups. I'm looking at right now. Again, my phone is on the SEC games and making sure that because some of them I just scanned. I was watching my son play a Pop Warner game for most of the day. So I'm trying to scan, make sure some of the things that I saw or half saw, some of the highlights are as big as what people needed to be. So I mean that's the big thing, man. So but yeah, so I mean the reality, and that was a no, so it has Nolan in his name. So that's the only reason I wanted to address it. If it was somebody else, I probably wouldn't have addressed it.
Yeah, Smooth Criminal, we brought this up earlier in the show, me and James. Neither one of us thinks they will actually get dropped, but going off of the criteria and how we fell and all the narratives out there, they 100% should, but they won't. But that gets us back to something I said a minute ago I wanted to talk about, and that's kind of the SEC. Let's power rate them guys. I look at the SEC, and especially after seeing Georgia today, there's still people out there talking about the possibility of 2 SEC teams in the playoff, this or that. One thing that I haven't heard, in 99.99% chance it won't happen, but what if a SEC team doesn't get in? When I look at the teams right now and I'm power ranking and I'm trying to look at who the top, 5 or 6 teams, it's like Georgia would not be in there without being back-to-back champions, but they are back-to-back champions, and we know what the record is. They're undefeated, but out of the 4 or 5 undefeated teams, they have not shown near as much as a Florida State or some of these other teams. I'd probably go Georgia, LSU, and then after that, you've got to take a long look in the mirror and talk Bama with Kentucky. Like, who do you see those top 3 or 4 SEC teams? And can you see a scenario where an SEC team doesn't make it in. If you see a Georgia lose, say in the SEC championship, to a 2 or 3 loss SEC West champion?
No, I don't see that happening. And the only let me rephrase that. The only way I think that so if there are 4, let's just say the undefeateds are the 5 conference champions are all undefeated. Obviously, somebody will get pushed out. I don't see that personally happening. I do see it probably and I can't even say the Big 12 because the Big 12 has 2 of the most exciting teams that are really going toward a matchup in the Red River rivalry. So you're going to see Oklahoma and Texas probably being undefeated versus undefeated. I don't think USC finishes the season undefeated. I don't think Oregon finishes the season undefeated. Utah just lost, but I still think Utah is a tough team. So there's still a lot there. And then Washington, I think Washington, the minute they face a team that has some really, really good defense that's going to be able to apply pressure, no disrespect to what Michael Penix Jr. is doing, I think that's going to change up. But what I think people are going to realize, and I've been a proponent of this for years, the SEC has had the best team, maybe the best 2 teams, but they are not the best conference in football. They have the best teams. The Big Ten is the best conference in football. And right now, I would make the argument that the Big Ten will probably more than likely have 2 teams. Let's say, Michigan runs the table on beating Ohio State and Penn State. But then Penn State beats Ohio State, or Ohio State beats Penn State or whatever. Obviously, only one of them will go to the championship. I think one of those teams could be that 4th team that comes in and gets a chance to play Georgia if they win the SEC. But if Georgia makes it to the SEC championship and then they lose to an LSU team or a Bama team that has a couple 1 or 2 losses, this will be the first year in quite some time that the SEC will probably be pushed out. And the reason why I said that is because Georgia has the weakest schedule and has not looked good while they've done it. Now, that's us talking now. But let's say Georgia blows out Florida. And the other part that people got to realize with Georgia is every game, Carson Beck, shout out to Carson Beck, former Mandarin Mustang, he is learning on the go. This was his first time playing in a tough environment on the road in the SEC. So each week, and he didn't play that great in the first half. Played really, really good in the second half. Played pretty good against South Carolina in the second half. So each week he's getting better. So I think he's going to I think we're going to see a better showing. But again, I think a lot of us are trying to make really, really big statements and assumptions based off of the first week of college football, real month of college football. That's why I don't believe in preseason rankings that much. We all have an idea of teams that are good, and I'm not opposed to them, but really week 8 is when things shake out and we kind of know what we have.
Yeah, if there's one thing I agree on, it's kind of smart that they don't even release that first playoff ranking until week 7, because kind of the biases and everything that come out of the preseason poll drive me nuts. And then kind of how they handle it after that. I see Tennessee and Clemson basically as the same team, but for whatever reason, the poll people see them as a giant gap just based off of, biases, et cetera, et cetera. But you hit on a big thing when you talked about Carson Beck with Georgia. I think that's kind of the difference. It's not like the SEC all of a sudden, doesn't have the talent this year. It's just quarterback. And just really across the country, that's kind of the name of the game. Pac-12 the past 4 or 5 years has been just not that great. They've had their issues. They've pretty much crumbled. They're not even a conference no more. And all of a sudden, they have all these great quarterbacks. And now, bam, they're the darling of the country. You look at the ACC, who's always been, kind of classically been a quarterback-dominated league that's kind of carried it over the years. Whenever you have a big year where the SEC loses those interconference matchups, it's because ACC has the quarterbacks. And when you look at it, Jordan Travis, Riley, you got Cade Klubnik coming along. The dude at Boston College all of a sudden is becoming a deal. Van Dyke at Miami. The SEC just doesn't have the big-name quarterbacks. But I'm with you on Carson Beck. It seems like they've got the training wheels on him and are just slowly but surely bringing him along. And that run he went on in the fourth quarter really was a good kind of look towards the future for him and I could see him putting it together and having that high ceiling. But there just isn't that, there's just not that go-to quarterback. There's no Joe Burrow this year in the SEC. There's no Cam Newton. There's no kind of guy like that. So it's pretty wide open with Georgia just out there in the lead, holding it down. When it comes to Florida, they found out about Murder Mertz today. It's like, there's a reason that kid kept winning that starting job year after year. It's like it gives you hope. He looks great in the preseason. First couple of games, usually he comes out. He gives you a chance to win. But there's just something in there where he's just – I don't know what it is. He's just but when these big games come, he's just off a little bit, and it seems like the turnovers show up. Did you get to see a lot of that game? What did you kind of see out of Mertz today? I just kind of saw that same quarterback finally show up that we saw at Wisconsin or Nebraska. I get them confused. Wisconsin quarterback for the past 3 or 4 years.
I watched that. I was watching between that and the Colorado game. It was a great slate of games today. So shout out to Colorado. That game was super exciting, and for Deion, there's a lot of faults that I have, and Deion's done a really good job. I knew they were going to compete with USC. I just didn't think it was going to be that high scoring to where they really had a chance at the end. But kudos to them. But Murder Mertz is about as efficient as you could possibly want, which I actually think for Florida, in the situation that they're in now, it probably isn't the end of the world for them. It's just he's not going to beat a good team or a team that's a good team or a team that's evenly matched. He's not going to be able to do it for them. He was 25 for 30, 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. There's no world where you really say that that's just a bad day, right? But the running game, which is usually what Florida's better at, just didn't get it done for them. And when you look at everything all over, it's just that was the difference. I mean, if I told you that Kentucky beat Florida with 69 yards passing, you would say, boy, ain't no way. No way.
That running back Davis, my word.
You want to know what's really funny?
An animal.
You know how many rushing yards Florida had?
How many rushing yards did they
69.
have? 72?
69 yards rushing. They had Kentucky had the same amount of passing yards that Florida had, except for Kentucky had 329 yards rushing. Florida also won time of possession, but here's where Florida really lost it. They had 10 penalties, 86 yards. 1 turnover. They lost the turnover battle. They lost the penalty battle. And what people were saying, and this is what I always tell people, they got to be careful with how you fire one coach, because if that other coach doesn't immediately come in and those fireable offenses aren't fixed, they're going to the people who didn't believe the other coach should be gone are going to use that against you. We saw that with Florida State fans. Mm-hmm. A lot of people said they didn't like Tag. The real reason they didn't like Tag is Tag didn't win. Bottom line, that's the real thing. But
sure.
in that, penalties were always brought up. Special teams not having enough people were brought up. A lot of different things were brought up, and those were all reasonable things that should have been brought up. But now, when you look at Florida's situation, all the people are bringing up they said we have all the same problems, if not worse, than what we had with Mullen. You consistently have 10 guys with 10 guys on the field in special teams. You had 13 guys on one of the last touchdowns that Kentucky scored on defense, and they still ran the ball in the end zone.
I guess that's better than 10.
Right, so technically, Florida had 11 penalties. They just didn't accept the last one because they had scored. So those are things that you just little mistakes that should not happen. And I think that's really where the frustration lies. Mertz did enough to where if you didn't have 10 penalties, you have time of possession. He did everything but push the ball downfield. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, the Florida people I talk to, they like Napier as the CEO of the team. heard a lot of guys say they want him to kind of hire a more hands-on guy at offensive coordinator, a real play caller to come in there and take over that offense. Something I found out the other day I never realized. I knew that like Jimbo Fisher was high on Napier and tried to hire him a couple times, etc. I totally whiffed. I totally forgot. He's the guy that Dabo fired to hire Chad Morris back in the day when Clemson's offense went from just being, getting teed off on every week to becoming a true, threat. So that's pretty, looking at their offense now and remembering back to what Clemson was in 2010 and 2011, makes a lot of sense looking at it.
I mean, not just that. Looking at the other things to look at too is just that he had that he went to that Saban rehabilitation program. So I always joke that when somebody goes to Saban, everybody thinks all the ills of the world have gotten released. I mean, even one of my favorite coaches is Kevin Steele. Kevin Steele was at Florida State, was a linebacker coach when I was there. He was Clemson's defensive coordinator when they got blown out. And I'm just saying. You go, man. When they got blown out, he goes to Saban rehabilitation program, and now everybody thinks that they're, that he was way better. So, you can't sing, buddy. You can say hi to everybody if you want to. Okay, you don't have to.
One thing I kind of missed out. I wanted to make sure we give a shout out to my guy Michael Bartz. Gold Knowles, haters gonna hate. Thanks for the $5 super chat, man. Yeah, just don't listen to those haters like we've been talking about. It's all about the Knowles. We're a number 4 team in the nation. It doesn't matter what anybody says. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. We might have to get Trey on here. Our guy Irvin Williams talking smack about Fuller. Yeah, those third and longs, guys, we got to get it cleaned up. But again, it's year really full of Fuller, and I'm not real upset. I don't see Fuller as being the problem there. Guys are just gonna have to make plays.
If you want to hear it from a guy's mouth, again, the Kalen DeLoach interview is up on Den Media Group. It was a member only for the question. We'll probably do next time. We'll just do members only can ask questions. We'll do it live because I think more people would have been interested to hear what he said live. But I tell people this: 16 missed tackles. 16 missed. Kyle, you got to bounce. You got to go, Kyle. You got to go. Go. 16 missed tackles is not the defensive coordinator. Now, you can say you're either coaching it or allowing it, right? And I'm with you on that. But you can't make the change in the middle of the season. You have to recruit that away. So there's nothing you can do for it right now. But, that means there were 16 people in position. Now, another good thing, if you need some help understanding and breaking down football, and I'm 100%, I think our fan base does need that. Me and CJ Wilson, until it got pulled, but I'm going to post on the Den Media Group's Facebook page the entirety of what me and CJ were discussing because it got pulled from the YouTube live stream because we use ESPN footage, but you can still see some of it. We're literally breaking down the highlights of the game from a defensive perspective. So it's the highlights that Clemson had. So that's bad plays on our defense. And what you're seeing guys in position to make plays. That means the call was right. That means the execution was wrong. And on the third and long, I think guys just get relaxed and they don't trust their technique, or they try to do it in their own strength. And that's the problem. If you blitz, because again, I'm hearing people say we don't blitz enough, but when you look at it from what I saw, we blitz damn near 75% of the time on the big plays on your third and fuller, which is when people are calling it. And you have guys get there and place an arm on Klubnik, and that's just not enough. We got to get the pressures to turn into sacks, and even on one of the touchdowns, which I think was on third and long, but Klubnik got crushed by Ronaldo Green, and Klubnik threw the ball blind. He just knew Shipley was going to be there, I guess, or in that area, and just threw it. It was great timing, good position, good. I mean, great play. Great plays happen when you're playing against good teams or players that really want to will it. I think even when we talk about Boston College, where 16 missed tackles on a cold, wet, rainy day. I think we play that game in fair conditions. I don't think the game is anywhere near as close as it was when when we played them. And I think the other side of it is complementary ball. That's the thing that I hope we get healthy, and I hope we come back moving forward. Florida State plays complementary football, where the offense helps the defense helps the offense, the special teams help both of them. So where the defense gets a 3 and out, the offense rewards that with a touchdown. Now you're putting pressure on the other team by continuing to score, and we didn't. When you look at BC, you literally got blanked in the fourth quarter. When we look at Clemson, we literally got blanked in the entire second half. We didn't score an offensive touchdown in the second half. We scored 3 points. Shout out to Fitz with the special teams doing their thing. But the only touchdown came from the defense until we got into overtime, and that's where you saw us score on the second play, and then you saw us also get 4 straight plays where we made Clemson basically cough it up. So I think that's dope.
Yeah, man, it was really wild, like you said, in that first half. There was a lot of plays where Klubnik, like you said, would just be a split second from getting sacked and throw it up and just the ball find the perfect place. And that's just going to happen. Like the other coaches get paid too. These are –
yeah.
Go ahead.
I think it would be better when Akeem Dent gets healthy too. I think a lot has to be said with our safeties not really understand. A lot of the confusion came there. And I hope it gets better. I hope he's healthy. But we definitely gotta do a little bit better.
Yeah, man. And that's another thing. We talk about our resume and where we should be ranked and all that stuff. Look, you play 3 P5 teams, 2 conference games on the road, after opening up with LSU. Like, this team is extremely beat up. And when you look at how it laid out with this bye week, and then you got a whole new week of preparation for Virginia Tech, that's 2 full weeks. That's like half of a camp, basically. You don't want to overlook an opponent, and far be it from me to say we're just going to roll our helmets out on the field and beat Virginia Tech, but we should kind of, it shouldn't be a game we work on. There should be the ability to rest a few guys, and by the time Duke comes to town, I'm fully expecting to see an energized team and a team like that came out versus LSU week 1. I think people kind of underestimate just how difficult and how physically grueling those first couple weeks of the season are, how physical BC is, of course, how physical LSU was, and then Clemson, that's the best defense we're going to play all year, hands down. Like, they're extremely physical. And like you said, if you can get Akeem Dent back, get that offensive line back at full strength, all of a sudden that running game comes to pick up, and complementary football, to touch back on that, like you said, we haven't seen it all year long. You talked about the blitzing. We blitzed plenty. I think the kind of issue was, I believe it was like we blitzed on 10% of plays in the first half and then like 40-45% in the second half. I think people want to see the defense maybe come out more aggressive in the first half, and I can't argue that. But at the same time, the same way, and James could probably explain this more than me, the same way that Jimbo Fisher back in the day used to poke and prod all first half to figure out what defenses we're going to do, and all of a sudden you'd have an explosion in the second half. Well, Mike Norvell sets up the offense and runs certain run plays, etc., run certain screens to do the same thing for the offense. Second half offensively, well, Adam Fuller's doing the same things with the defense. He's showing these guys looks, maybe drops back off of pressure in the first half that in the second half, all of a sudden you think they're going to drop off and they bring it. So do you see that coming? Do you think maybe we could see it change? Maybe he blitzes 40% in the first half against Virginia Tech and then 10% the second half, or is that kind of just, overblown?
Here's the thing about blitzing, man. We had this saying, right? If you blitz a lot, that means you're hiding something. And when you're hiding something, it's the offense's job to figure out what you're hiding. And once they figure it out, it's very difficult to go back to that, you know what I'm saying, or to solve it. So you should be, and when you have the number one, when you have a D-line with and there again, if you look at if you like the pro football focus and the next generation stats and all those things, we have a D-line that's getting pressure. They're just not getting sacks. But when you have 4 guys that are graded with draft grades, you should be able to fold most offensive lines that you're playing. So I think as a defensive coordinator, you're going to the game thinking like, okay, wow, this is what I should be able to do. And when you're playing a spread, which most of the ACC is spread, when you're playing that, you need to be able to keep your guys in the back, in particular when you have athletic quarterbacks or quarterbacks that are decent. And when we look at what we've played an athletic quarterback in every game. Now, Klubnik isn't as athletic as Castellano was, but he's still athletic enough to be able to beat you. And thank God he wasn't, because if he was, we would have lost that game more than likely. But you got to pick and choose your battles with that. It's not Madden. It's not and when people are running the crossing routes and you're flooding, it's called flooding the zone and moving your pocket. So what Boston College did to us is what we do to other teams. And so that's the crazy part is we do this stuff and it works, right? What do you think the other people are saying?
They get paid too, man.
It's really hard to run this shit. Like, it's hard to stop it. It's hard as a so let's just put in what I always say, defense has rules, right? So when I'm just going to bring down just a simple base play that I love to talk about when you're talking about a flood in the zone concept or a bootleg concept or moving your pocket. So we're going to run, we got crossing routes. So we got a slam release by the tight end or the fullback. They're in the flat. So if you're running a zone, your corners got to be occupied. They got to pay attention to the flat. If the linebacker goes to that, then that means you've got the drag route with the tight end or a wide receiver or somebody's coming behind that. They're coming behind that at 5 to 7. So there's that. If they take that away, or if the safety takes that away, you've got a deep comeback or a deep hitch by a wide receiver. That's about either 10 yards or 15 yards, depending upon a 15 to come back, 12, depending upon what you got. So boom, if they got all of that covered, then man, basically the backside post should be wide open. But you can't just throw that blind. What I'm saying is if they're doing all of that and they didn't respect the play action on the run, and now we're going to go run the damn run play and then still do all of these same movements. So the defense has to move to all of these things. Our defense has to move to all of these different things. So I think it's tough. And the other part, too, is what's tougher is, and why I always tell people why I am a Fuller apologist, is because the energy that people use for Fuller, and I'm not suggesting that you should. I think it's dumb to kind of go over. I think we go over the top with Fuller, and I think we don't need to take that same energy and go over the top on Atkins or Mike Norvell. But ever since Fuller's gotten here, it's been our defense sucks, fire Fuller, fire Fuller. And even when I was just like, well, our offense went for it on 4th down on the 35.
Oh, we had something go on. We lost James there for a minute. We'll get him back in here, see what's going on. I think he may have just accidentally turned his camera on. Let's see. There he goes.
Yeah, my bad. My camera went. Uh-oh.
Yeah, you're back in there. Well,
right.
Your camera's not up, but we can hear you.
Okay. Oh, hold on. Let me switch my camera. That might be what the deal is. Yeah, my camera actually turned off.
There you go.
There we go. What I was saying is basically that nobody talked about how the offense was stalling, the offense wasn't scoring, and people were like, well, they haven't had practice, so they need to get stuff. And I'm just like, well, was there a different rule during COVID? Like the defense could practice, but the offense wasn't. It was just the excuses that were being made for the offense weren't being made for the defense, and I know why. The guy we wanted is now the head coach in Oregon. I'm with you. I would have loved to have Lanning, but he didn't come. That didn't make this guy bad. You know what would have happened with Lanning? They would have probably done the same thing. You would have just liked him more because he was a better name that you can relate to. Just none of us knew who the fuck Fuller was. So that's the reason why. But you don't hold. And then when we brought in Make-A-Wish kid from the Mickey Mouse, trying to do the Disney story. What's the boy from UCF that was really good, but
Mackenzie Milton.
Yeah, Mackenzie Milton. Like nobody brought up that. Like that, nobody talked about those things. And nobody talked about before Mackenzie Milton how Jay Trav literally, we should have lost to Jacksonville State Mike's first year. Jay Trav came in and saved the day. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And that Jacksonville State team was better than the Jacksonville State team that we lost to. Now, the one we lost to is, we tried to we played the Make-A-Wish kid, and he wasn't able to do nothing, and then it turned out bad. But again, everybody blamed Fuller, and rightfully so.
It blows my mind because defense won that Clemson game, in my opinion. It was their performance in the second half that brought it down. So how anybody could be bitching about plays in the first half? It's just like you said. It's complimentary football. Special teams. That's another thing that hurt the defense last year. Special teams. We couldn't kick a field goal. You always have to go for it. Adam Fuller. It's a grass is greener thing. We still hear about third and Charles Kelly, 10, 15 years. And he was good enough for Bama, and he's good enough for Colorado and everybody else. I just think Adam Fuller is always going to have hate from the fan base, until he makes it 10 more years and has 2 national championships. It's just what it is. But I'm more in line with you and Trey. No matter how aggravated we may get about a particular play call or whatnot, he has those guys, and where they've came over the past 4 years is just remarkable. That those linebackers, man, I couldn't be happier. Having Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune be heat-seeking missiles in the middle of that defense is something we haven't seen at Florida State since 2013 when Tubman Smith left.
And I remember, where guys are just like, he's not great in recruiting. And I'm like, and I'm talking to kids getting recruited, and they love him. It's just a lot of stuff, man. It's just like even this, like, Carlin playing 2 different things. And I get it's just, like I said, the biggest thing is he perfect? Nobody's perfect. All I'm saying is that we can't have, no matter how good your DC is, you can't have lulls in the offense. Period. You cannot go scoreless. North Carolina State last year, people blaming Fuller. They scored 1 American football touchdown and kicked nothing but field goals. In fact, again, I think we went for it on our 35, and they stopped it.
In the second half.
You said what?
And shut out in the second half.
Yep. So, knocked out the quarterback. All we needed was a point. We would have been able to. We would have won that game. Clemson, we basically stopped them after that middle age shit. They just didn't we didn't score any points on offense. Wake Forest scored a touchdown in the first possession of the second half and did not score again until the end of the game where they kicked the field goal. But our offense got blanked for most of the second and the third quarter. It's just like I just don't really get it. Again, it's complimentary football. Is he what's my guy's name? Is he
Mickey Andrews?
Is he Monty Kiffin? No. Is he Mickey Andrews? No. But I will say, if our offense was pressing, which is where we have a considerable amount of resources at, I think we would be I think we would feel a little bit better. So, but all that being said, is just that again, we need to. I think somebody put up there. We do need to. People say attack the slots, use the slots. I think we do need to incorporate our guys, but I also think in tough, tight situations, I'm going with the guys that I feel comfortable with. People say attack the middle of the field. Go look at all of Johnny Wilson's catches.
Johnny Wilson has a lot of big plays. A lot of those breaking in routes over the middle.
In the middle of the field. That's the guy that was open. The blame is positioning. Actually, you know what? Actually, put that up there. So who to blame on 13-play drops? Getting off the fucking field. The players. It is okay. It's not even. It's like if you see somebody blitz. Like if we see Jared Verse come in and he literally pats the quarterback and doesn't get the sack, there's nothing wrong with saying, "Damn, Jared Verse needed to get that sack," and then they gained 15 on that. That's what the film showed us. Or what is the better play to call? That's my thing. What play would you want better to be called if a guy got there in position and missed the tackle? Like, there is no better. I mean, there might be a better play. I just can't argue that we need a better play call there when the play was there to be made. And you've got one of the best defensive ends in the nation that everybody else will want to be on the field. Is the suggestion put in, and this is no knock on him, take him out and put Dennis Briggs in? Is that what the suggestion would be? Would Dennis Briggs even be in the position to even pat the quarterback? Just using that as an example. The suggestion when you have miscommunication in the secondary, I would argue that, maybe not having one of the guys who has the most experience in the secondary and Akeem Dent might affect you more than what you would think it is, especially when you're putting a guy like Knowles in who's still learning how to play the safety position.
Yeah, and here's a perfect one. So in the first half, fans are bitching because, why do you got to send this blitz from 20 yards away from the quarterback, myself included sometimes? It's like, damn, I wish, send a blitz closer. Well, it was that particular blitz from 20 yards out with Kalen DeLoach that resulted in the fumble for a touchdown that sends it to overtime and wins you the game. So it's
now,
just
what
one
I
of
will
those
say
things.
is this, is I learned something on that play too from Kalen, is that the players get the freedom to make the calls and some of the stuff. And that was a call that was made. So that wasn't necessarily Fuller saying we're going to send Kalen on this. It was like they could pick the fire. It will just say it's a fire call. I don't know exactly what it's called. They can pick for wherever they need to get to. So, I mean, but again, accountability, at the end of the day, accountability comes from the top. So I understand it. I just don't. I'm just saying, like, it's probably a better, more intelligent argument that we can make when it comes to that. Or it's maybe just a simpler argument as our guys will eventually get there. Our guys are in position. Our guys will eventually get there. So, like, when Kalen said boom, 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 I was like, wow, I didn't really I wouldn't have done that. Now, I will say that I wouldn't have done that, but I also probably wouldn't have called the game-winning play. So
what do they call that? Like a green dog blitz or something? So pretty much, and that's the thing with having a fourth-year coordinator, these guys can recognize, the guy that I'm responsible for is blocking or whatever the case may be. I can come. That's a big thing that you don't, that takes time and having a senior like DeLoach to be able to make that decision. I didn't catch that part, or I don't know if I missed it, but that's awesome to know. That's kind of an audible in the moment that he decides to come and make that giant play.
He said Bethune called it. And Bethune came too. And it was ballsy. Really ballsy. But I think, but again, like, I think what it comes down to is all of us want us to be as successful as possible. So I don't get mad at anybody. I think we all want. Now, I'm gonna put it like this: Mel Tucker become available. Hey man, get me Tuck. I like Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker like that. But that's an easy one. That wasn't there before the beginning of the season, before he had some controversy happen. But
I mean, what he did wasn't like, this isn't career ending. This is bad look on the university. But yeah, give me Tucker. I'll even look at Aranda. I don't know much about Aranda's scheme, but both those guys are probably going to be available after this year.
Those are really good guys. Or I mean, like I said, but the bigger thing is this: is that we have and what I will agree, and I think a lot of it. I think we'll see a lot more come now that the pressure is off. Because again, if we go back and we analyze what most of us said, I always thought we were going 4-0 in the month of September. I said 3-1 would have been acceptable. Most people would have been fine with 3-1.
Oh yeah.
With our two losses coming with not two losses, excuse me, with one of the losses coming between Clemson and LSU. But the fact is, we went through the month of February. February. I'm going Black History Month already. We went through the month of September 4-0 in perfect position to get everything that we wanted to get. And it's cool that we have things to nitpick with, like that we didn't win by enough. When a lot of us really thought that, certain things would happen. We saw what the offense is capable of, but we also saw where the offense is weak. We saw what the defense is capable of, but we also saw where the defense didn't do what it's needed to be done. And some of that we could just say with college football. When we look at the landscape, which is the dopest thing we could do here, and what we talked about earlier in the show with the landscape of college football, USC is considered a playoff team. USC can't stop a nosebleed with a tourniquet. You got Oregon that's struggling. Last I checked, that was struggling with Stanford, and Stanford can't beat anybody. You've got USC also struggled with Arizona State. You got Georgia that should have probably lost to Auburn, which, if we're being honest. You got, I'm trying to think, Miami's 4-0, but they haven't played anybody, so we'll see what they go with next week. You've got a lot of teams that are in position Texas has struggled with Wyoming, even though they beat Alabama. It's a lot of things that people have that are struggling that we would have never thought would have been into that game. Anybody who wants to realize that for fun. So if you're a member over at Den Media Group, we do a week. I think you're in it too, George. We do our weekly college football pick'em game for $50. The problem is we pick it against the spread. It ain't just pick it outright. Try playing that. It's some stuff in there that I'm just like, tough. Man, I just know. Like, I know Texas is going to blow Wyoming out wrong. Or I know this is going to happen. And then even though you knew the teams who were going to win, you got it right, but you got it wrong because they didn't live up to the expectations of what everybody else thought. That's the beautiful thing about college football. That's what makes it pure. And, I don't know, man, but we'll see. The season keeps going. Right now, the goal is to finish the month of October in the same manner in which you finished the month of September. And play football where you're not turning the ball over, and you're trying not to be as you're trying not to get penalized, and keep the game out of the refs. I will say this too: our defense had to fight the refs and Clemson. It's hard to do both. I forgot who posted the picture. I retweeted it and talked about it, but man, it was downright bad what was happening to Fabo a few times. I know Fabo.
Charles Mays, man. Charles Mays had 4 pictures of the craziest hold you ever seen between Braden Fisk and Fabo. It was nuts.
Like, you need to he should call the authorities, because I think you need consent to hold somebody like as much as he was held. And I doubt he gave that. I doubt he gave consent in those manners. But
no doubt. One thing I thought about before we get out of here. My bad, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we talked about Dave Aranda and Mel Tucker. It kind of brought me back to all those hires that happened in 2020. Lane Kiffin's playing right now, but all the talk about Mike Norvell and the hot seat and this and that, and I've been saying it for 2 or 3 years that he was the best hire out of that bunch. I believe it's pretty much open and shut case now, looking back at that 2020 group and that group that came in under COVID, what Mike Norvell has done to have us where we are now, and like you said, set up in this position going into October to make a run at a playoff. It's pretty damn amazing that we'll be looking at possibly hiring some of those other head coach hires from 2020 to join our staff probably this offseason. Lot 19, we're getting back to tailgating after having several weeks off. Let the folks know what they got to do to get their tickets for the Den Media Group tailgate coming up next week.
Right now, you can go to at Big Game James _36. It's my pin tweet, Sporadics, at CJ Wilson 850. Any of those on Twitter. There's a link to the ticket tailor right now for this weekend, Monday around 1:00. Basically, after Big Games BS, if you want to win $300, you should watch Big Games BS live so that you can be entered into that. We will bump the price back up to what the normal price of the tailgates are, which is $60. So I want to say it's $40 right now. Is what the price is, and then it's $30. It's youth tickets, or if you don't drink alcohol, it's $30 no matter what. So we're trying to get everybody, encourage you to buy as much as you can early. We always lower the ticket prices when we first launch it. It's to try, because again, at the end of the day, the tailgate isn't necessarily a moneymaker for any of us. We do a lot of stuff that makes a lot more money. It's about getting people together, and then the proceeds go to the MFTK Foundation. And that's how we give away tickets. We do our book bag drives. We do a ton of stuff in the communities, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Orlando, through the MFTK Foundation. One of the big things that we're doing is for the Duke game. We got a young man, Jack Coleman. He's blind, and he's legally blind, but he will be completely blind in a few years. He had a tumor in the back of his brain. The surgery and the treatments basically did that. One of his wishes were to go see a Florida State game. So we're going to take him, all expenses paid. Right now, we've got enough money raised to take care of his hotel room. And then we're going to keep going on and doing more of the other stuff. So we just want everybody to come in, have a good time, eat some food, drink some liquor, fellowship with other fellow FSU fans, meet some former players, because a lot of former players come through the tailgate, not me, like more important guys that you guys probably like, and that know a lot more about this game than I do. They come through, and that's about it, man. So it's really simple. That's about it.
So what time is Big Game BS going to be Monday morning, you said?
9
Eastern?
9:30-ish.
Okay, 9:30-ish Eastern. And then also Monday over at the Renegade Report, I do the Renegade Rundown at 7 Eastern. And then it's an hour show. And following that, you have the Spear Addicts Weekly Show with Big James and Chris Frazier over there at Spear Addicts at 8 p.m. Eastern. So y'all make sure y'all check out the whole lineup. Every Wednesday, we do the Voice of Florida State live stream. Also, don't forget our sponsor here for the FSU Voice of College Football post-game show. This week's our bye week, but still visit ticketsmarter.com. You've got 2 codes, all caps, BIG and BIG20. The first one, BIG, is for your purchase of $100 or more. You'll get $10 off with that code name, BIG. Also, if you spend $300 or more at ticketsmarter.com, you'll get $20 off. Again, you purchase $300 or more, $20 off with the code name BIG20. Again, that's ticketsmarter.com. Go give them a look. 100% guaranteed you have nothing to worry about. It's the best way to get your tickets. Go over there. Again, that's ticketsmarter.com. James, thanks so much for joining us, man. It was a lot of fun. We're going to get out of here and watch the rest of the football for tonight. But, man, the Noles are set, man. I saw exactly what I wanted to see. There wasn't a ton of mayhem. Maybe some big names didn't fall, but everything that Florida State, detractors have been honest about with this game control stuff. We saw it with Georgia. We saw Florida get blown out. I'm super happy. Is there anything you wanted to cover before we get out of here?
Nah, man, I'm good.
All right, man. Thanks, James. Thanks, Nole Nation, for joining us. It's all about the Noles, hell with everything orange, and we'll see you guys Monday. Don't forget to check it out. Big Game BS, the Renegade Rundown, Spear Addicts. See you there.